Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm actually late. Sorry about that. It's been a crazy morning. I had a meeting that ran late, and today is my mother's birthday. For those of you that have been with me for a while, you know that when you see this location, which is this darling, beautiful cow woman, actually Native American cow woman, and when you see this edge of this tree here, which is a beautiful metal piece, it has a whole story to it. You know that I am in the United States in my mother's home, and I come down here twice a year at least, to say happy birthday for my mother this time of year. So this time I actually came for jury duty, but that's a whole conversation I'm not going to get into because we had it in Wednesday's iSprouts meeting. So go back to look at, what is it, Wednesday, the 21st of February, 2024. Go check out that it was a fascinating conversation that led to the rights of nature conversation. So it was very plant related in the end. Thank you, Michelle. I will definitely share. My mother just went out to go get coffee with her friend, because that's what she does. She gets coffee and walks around and does this long walk thing with one of her best friends. And I love that my mother is 83 years old, and you should see her. She walked down the stairs. I wish I would have taken a photo. She walked down the stairs with big sunglasses on and a jean jacket, and she was sending kisses out to her people for her birthday. It was the most amazing thing ever. So inspirational. I love this woman so much. But I was running late to a meeting. I had a meeting that ran very late, and then I had to get my coffee. I don't drink coffee. My tea, which I can't show you yet because it's still preparing. But I will show you because my mug is humongous, like the size of my face. I'm in a very American mood. Let's just say it that way. So it's just what it is. So today we are actually going to be talking about Ecozoic. Ecozoic. I don't know if you have ever heard this word before. So I'm not going to get into it right now because we're going to go through an article that explains what Ecozoic means and what are the Ecozoic times. And then I want to go through a paper that I announced last week that I would be going through, that's called From the Anthropocene to Mutual Thriving, an Agenda for Higher Education in the Ecozoic. And this is extremely useful because synchronically, I had completely forgotten that we had agreed that we were going to do this paper together. And in our leadership group, we ended up having a big conversation about higher education, rote memory, and what is education look like. It was under the context of machine learning and artificial intelligence, but we ended up getting to a lot of the topics that I think this paper is going to address. So I'm actually excited because synchronically, all of our channels of communication have converged, and all of our thoughts are converging, and we're having really great conversations that are feeding into one another. By the way, if you're new here in the Naturally Conscious community, hello. I'm extremely happy to have you. We've had a lot of new entries in. You might notice that from the posting front, NCC is very heavy on me. I post a lot because I have a lot to say. And that's fine. And I'm trying to encourage everyone else to post more and to comment more. But the truth of the matter is we have a lot of conversations that happen in our live calls. So if you are new to the Naturally Conscious community, part of the reason you're not seeing 100% everything is because you need to go into the video replays, which are in their different areas. So for example, the book club discussions that we have, or the monthly iSprouts gathering, which is kind of our networking. We call it iSprouts because it's interspecies sprouts that we all are. And so it's a wonderful opportunity where we just kind of sit and chat and drink tea, and some people drink coffee, and have really great conversations. We have a leadership group. We have so many different calls. So if you go and you click on events for you, you will see that there's a whole mess of events going on every single week. If you don't see that many of them, know that they're divided. There is seedling sprouts and blooming sprouts and flourishing sprouts. And so you can click on seedling sprouts to see everything that's in there, and on blooming sprouts. And when you join any one of those levels, you get even more stuff like the book club and the iSprouts gathering. And next week, we're going to have the creative greenhouse. Every week I publish a calendar for you. so that you can see exactly what's coming up in the coming weeks. So just in case it doesn't show up in events for you, it's because you might be missing, you might not be a member yet of one of those groupings, of one of those membership levels, Sprout memberships. And so therefore you can just join the membership. You get a month free to explore it and check it out. They're very cheap anyway. It's like $3 a month on one, US dollars, by the way, and $12 a month for the other. So it's a really easy way for you to kind of participate in all of the different conversations. So that's probably why you don't see a lot of writing. But anyways, today we are here right now to talk about these Ecozoic times, because I found that this terminology was something that I've been reading about lately. The whole conversation of the Anthropocene has been kind of coming up in different contexts, both from people who love the terminology. Nobody really loves the terminology, let's be honest, but those who think the terminology is extremely accurate, and those that don't feel like it's accurate at all. I'm going to go keep looking for more. I'm going to look for some really good articles probably on that. If I come across articles and papers on that, I will let you know. It's just that our list of papers, to be honest, is so long, and they're great papers. Don't get me wrong. They go from technical to the basically plant-human relations, and the plant humanities has expanded so much. And because we're now in the years, if you're new here, you know that if you go back and you can go look at all the old live commentaries, you'll see that I started way back in like the 2000, not that I started doing them, but I went back to papers that were from the 2000s, 2010s. And then we've made it all the way through now to these that we're going to go through. Is the paper itself is from, let me see, oops. Yeah, the paper itself is from 2019. So we've made it all the way through to 2019. And in the 2021, 22, there's an explosion of really amazing commentary and papers and essays and thoughts and so many different things. So, you know, we only do this once a week. So we're trying to go, we get 52 of them a year until you tell me that you want more, and I'll start doing more every single week. But basically these streams give us the opportunity to really dig deep into them. So let's just get started, because, you know, that's what we do here. So let me share my screen, and I'm going to, not window, where am I? Here, there we go. Okay, so let me talk about this here. So here we have the Ecozoic times. This is actually a periodical of some sort. Like, this is news and resources for emerging Ecozoic era. I actually just discovered it. Reinventing human-earth relations in this new geologic era. And I find it interesting because you'll notice that if you can see this, hold on, I think I can make it a little bit bigger. So if you look at it a little bit bigger, you'll see that I find this really fascinating, because the word human is in lowercase and the word earth is in uppercase, as it should be. But I have noticed, I know this is going to be like, but we talk about how language matters here. I've noticed earth being written a lot with a lowercase e, and I find that disturbing, because I feel like people don't recognize the difference between earth as a proper name of this beautiful planet that we live in, and as the living being. It would be like calling, you know, my friend Charlie with a lowercase c if the person doesn't want it. It's just like you're not recognizing the person for who they are as a being, as an individual being whose name is Charlie. And so I love that. I know this is such a little teeny tiny thing in a lot of people's minds, but it really isn't. It's big to recognize who the earth as a being is. So anyways, this is the new geologic era that they're calling the Ecozoic era. So let's get into this, because this is kind of their original paper. I don't know if it says the year. Hold on, I'm just going to see if it says somewhere the year. I don't see the year when this was written, but maybe I'll find it somewhere. Okay, so what does Ecozoic mean? So I wanted to get into this because, like I said, in order for us to better understand this other paper, I needed to go through this for. The term Ecozoic era was coined by Thomas Berry in conversation with Brian Swimme for their book, The Universe Story. For the universe story, in order to describe the geologic era that Earth is entering when humans live in mutually enhancing relationships with Earth and Earth community. How ideal. Sorry, I had to stop for a second because it's so ideal. Like, yes, it's where we want to enter. Are we really entering it? Are we really getting there yet? I hope so. I hope so. I think this is great about like paying it forward, putting it in there with the hopes that it's going to be in the future. Okay. Earth is entering a new geologic era because the previous one, the Cenozoic, oh my goodness, sometimes these words just kill me. Cenozoic era, spanning the last 65 million years, has been terminated by the Western-style industrial human community in the late 19th, 20th, and early 21st century. Terminated. You have been terminated. You are the weakest link. Goodbye. While not intending to change the course of evolution or change the chemistry or large-scale cycles of the planet, we have indeed done so. We have been, as a civilization, simply paying attention to our own human needs, acting out of what Dr. Brian Swimme calls local mind. While many individuals of the last century have been aware of the effects of our way of life has had on the Earth community, as a society and now a global civilization, we have been unable to see those effects. I don't know. I think we have been able to see those effects. Okay, wait, hold on. You're going to see my tea. Oh, sorry. I accidentally clicked something. Bye. Let me show you my tea. Isn't this awesome? It is so not kosher to be drinking this beautiful, like Chinese tea that I'm drinking with this, but I couldn't resist. I just love this. It's a mug that I only get when I'm here, so I couldn't resist. Okay. Anyway, that's so crazy. We have not historically been paying attention to how our activities have impacted the larger community of life and those structures and systems that support life. The evolutionary dynamics that created Earth now include the conscious and unconscious actions of the human family. Here below is a paper written by your editor about the word Ecozoic. Groping our way towards a new geologic era, a study of the word Ecozoic by Allysyn Kiplinger, spring of 2010. So this is 2010. So we're going back to 2010. I'm actually going to kind of like go through this relatively quickly because I want to get to the other paper, but I do want to set the foundation. So I'm probably going to spot through this, but if there's anything that's missing or you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat and I will catch them from there. And then we'll look for the answers together. Introduction. The universe gropes its, let's make this bigger. The universe gropes its way forwards in fits and starts, progressing by trial and error through a multiplicity of attempts and efforts, moving in many directions as it looks for a breakthrough, for a leap forward in evolution and consciousness. This is how Jesuit paleontologist Pierre Teilhard de Chardin described progress. Indeed, the universe seems to be sorry, that little editor side of me just went like, where are the quotes around the other? Anyway, indeed, the universe seems to be groping towards a new kind of consciousness that leads to a new geologic era. Thomas Berry named it the Ecozoic era. In this article, I share my personal and intellectual journey of discovering of this emerging era. I offer the etymology and the story of how the word was invented, its relationship to geology, and the 19th century terms in milieu that preceded it. By the way, I have to say this. I love the fact that this actually has been defined in the sense of not necessarily the name. I mean, yes to the naming, but that wasn't my point. We had talked about this in NCC all the time, and I think it's really important for us to keep talking about the fact that many of our words are the vocabularies that we use will not help us get where we need to go. If we're going to shift consciousness into a new direction, we need to shift words to match that. And this really happens in every language. Obviously, here we speak in English, and I was thinking about this today because tomorrow morning for me in the crack of dawn, because of the hour, time zone difference between where I live in Italy and here, I'm going to watch a conference that Damanhur is hosting on gender. And I was thinking about gender, and I'm really curious about listening to this. And the reason why I'm waking up in the middle of the night in order to watch it live is the fact that I actually don't know what a lot of this terminology is for gender and all the different aspects of gender and gender and sexuality and all these different aspects that are, you know, kind of loosely related in many different ways. I actually don't have a good insight into what all of this looks like from the Italian perspective. So I'm very, very curious. I'm only now starting to learn what it sounds like from the English, I mean, not the English, excuse me, from the Spanish perspective. And even there, I'm not very well aware to a lot of the words, and, moving off to other languages that I speak. But the reason why I feel like this is so important is because language helps shape our thoughts, right? Our images or our feelings or our experiences get put into a language in order for us to, one, capture them. So when I capture them for myself, yeah, sure, I can draw, but it's much easier for a lot of people to journal or to write or to, in some ways make some kind of using vocabulary to kind of trigger memory and to relate to memory. And also the sharing, we need shared words that help us better understand what these terms, how do we put forth these definitions to others in order for us to share these ideas and thoughts. So the fact is that the more we're going to have, we need to have a boom in new words, not the repurposing of old words. For example, we saw this with Robert Macfarlane, not just in his book Underland, where he brought back many words that were obscure and not understood about the whole world of the Underland, but which was the last book we had read in the Plant Wisdom Book Club. But in the context of the children's book that he wrote that was about spells and words that have been taken from their natural context, like a thread or a cloud, and moved into a digital context. So when we think of a cloud today, we're not necessarily first and foremost thinking about the cloud formation in the sky, or when we think about something like when we think about other kinds of terminology, we think of the digital realm like, oh, I'm going to put that in the cloud. And so we are losing our relationship to nature in some ways by repurposing these words, where it would have been much better for the digital entrepreneurs of the world to have come up with completely new words so that we could have cloud and this backup thing that holds my stuff into the digital space, instead of trying to confiscate a word that is now losing its natural connotation. So I am happy that Ecozoic is a term that exists regardless of whether or not it's the era, because I think it's extremely important for us to be moving in the direction of adding more words. Sorry, that was a very long-winded way of saying that. In this article, I share my personal and intellectual journey of discovery of this emerging era. I offer the etymology. Okay, wait, hold on. Oh yeah, the etymology of the story, how it was invented, its relationship to geology, and the 19th century terms and milieu that preceded it. I already read that, sorry. I also offer a discussion of contemporary humans' relationship to deep time and the possibility of humans directing geology in mutually enhancing manner. Sorry, I'm holding my excitement back, because I think probably not just with the Underland that we read, but also there was more synchronicities happening and coming into the naturally conscious community about the whole concept of deep time. And the fact that we have, and we will be hosting starting in July, the Damanhur Mystery School, which I'll put into the notes, information about the Damanhur Mystery School that we're going to be hosting inside of NCC. So a very special edition with some extra bells and whistles that only we here in NCC do. And I'm very excited because we're going to be now approaching time from multiple perspectives. So up until now, we have been approaching time, deep time, from both the perspective of geology and the physicality of deep time, but also from the tree perspective and like the plant perspective of how plants, and I have an upcoming podcast episode that I'm going to be talking about this. And soon we're going to be looking at it from also time empires and really the nature of time in and of itself in the mystery school when we start talking about this. This is something that is also on the time and time travel episodes, the series that was done by Damanhurian Kurotolo Sesamo in Gaia TV, which, oh, I have a Gaia announcement too, but I'll hold that for later because we're already, it's just so much to tell you. Coming to you once a week, and I have just so many things to talk to you about that we just eat through our time so fast. Okay, hold on, let me drink some more tea. For now, I need to drink tea slow because the mug is very filled. Okay. Anyways, so there's going to be a lot of stuff coming around time. So just keep an eye out for that, because time is such a fascinating subject. And when we change our relationship with time from a linear progression that most humans experience to a fabric of which there is a vegetal temporality as well as an empire, a time empire and time islands, very natural topics. You're gonna absolutely love this conversation. Anyway, let me keep going. My ultimate intent is to contribute to the development of a richer vocabulary with which to value life, the Earth community, and human-Earth relations. My instructions. We get our instructions from visions and dreams, Thomas Berry. And this is why we need other vocabulary, because visions and dreams do not always speak in the ways that we know today. For years, I've been enamored by Thomas's neologism Ecozoic, for reasons intellectual and spiritual, personal and planetary, obvious and mysterious. My fascination is so strong that I'm attempting to recreate my professional life around the flourishing of the word and, more importantly, the profound ideas encompassed by it. I understand you so well, honey. I understand you so well. A number of years ago, during a period of intense doubt about all things Ecozoic, I imagined myself trying to explain Ecozoic to an audience at a local bookshop. A disdainful detractor at my imagery presentation aggressively stood and unreasonably challenged me. He loudly demanded from the back of the room, "Who are you to promote such a made-up word?" I promote made-up words all the time. Who gives you the right to promote it? He was mean, rude, and borderline crazy. Probably. Who was I to use a made-up word with such confidence? Who gave Thomas the authority to invent it? In fact, by what authority did any geologist, any thinker, any inventor ever act to invent what they did? Exactly. Like we can all coin words, by the way. We can all coin words. I mean, you think Googling something was a word that existed in the dictionary somewhere obscurely? No, somebody woke up one day, called the company Google, and the rest is history. After a time, I realized the imaginary man at the back of the room was one of my guides asking me in a not so subtle way to clarify my thinking about Ecozoic ideas. A vision reminded me that we humans live in a self-made world. Every word, every concept, every tool, large or small, grand or mundane, was first conceived or invented by one of our human ancestors. Well, I don't know if I agree with that statement. I mean, it was definitely conceived or invented by one of our ancestors, but in my experience, they weren't all human. And I think you need to give a little bit more space, because if you're trying to promote Ecozoic, you need to recognize that that word could have been invented by other kin and then passed to humans who then verbalized it for the first time. Just say. While Earth and universe are the original sources of creativity, it was a particular individual human being responding to a creative force that invented the word, concept, or tool. Let's just go with it. You know that we think of this a little bit more expansively. While humans did not make the tongue, we made the language. While we did not make the continent, we made the country. While we did not make the tree, we made the table. Sorry, I'm going to have to sit after that one because that's a horrible example that she puts at the end. Already, she's not making a good case for Ecozoic. If it's mutually thriving, she's not making a case. Of course, the human community had to find the invention useful, adopt it, and incorporate it into culture. But look around. Everywhere there is proof that our ancestors confidently acted on their own authority and collectively invented the human world we live in today. I thought I was going to agree with almost everything she wrote, but now, who gave Thomas the authority to invent the word Ecozoic? Earth and universe endowed Thomas with unique sensitivities, and Thomas acted on his own authority, a grand human tradition. If the Ecozoic era is to be created, we can rely on our own authority to help create it, grappling forward. Sorry, hold on a second. I need to see something. So the Ecozoic era describes the geologic era that Earth is entering, where humans live in mutually enhancing relationships with Earth and the Earth community. Explain to me how, am I just being a little bit over sensitive, where She's talking about Ecozoic as in mutually thriving with the Earth, and yet this is extremely human-centric. Okay, I need to keep going forward because this is a little bit frustrating. As you may know, the etymology of Ecozoic is eco, derived from the Greek word oikos, meaning house, household, or home, and zoic from the Greek word meaning zoikos, meaning pertaining to living beings. Thus, Ecozoic era is defined as the era of the house of living beings. It was coined by Thomas while in extended conversation with Brian Swimme in the late 1980s. Brian says, you're missing quotes there. Anyway, when Thomas and I were writing the universe story, this would have been the late 1980s, we wanted to get the right name for the emerging era. What went round and round and round, trying out possibilities. This was while we were working in motels or eating meals in restaurants or talking on the phone in between meetings. Then one night, I don't know the exact date, the phone rang and I answered it and it was Thomas. He didn't say hello or anything. He just launched right into it. His voice was explosive with excitement. I've got it. It's the Ecozoic era. We both burst into laughter, our instant mutual recognition of just how right this term was. It was the first time the word was ever thought of. It's an example of Thomas's geological consciousness. This occurred somewhere after the 1988 publication of Thomas's The Dream of the Earth, as the word Ecozoic is absent from that book, although the concept is fairly well developed in chapter 5. The ecological age. In 1990, he used the term shyly in the 13th part Vision TV series filmed at Holy Cross Center in Port Burmah, Ontario. That video series was transcribed and in 1991 published as Befriending the Earth. Later in 1991, Thomas had fully developed the term. He used it with ease in his Schumacher lecture in October 1991, entitled The Ecozoic Era, in Great Barrington, Massachusetts. In 1992, it is used in the subtitle of the book he co-authored with Brian, The Universe Story, From the Primordial Flaring Forth to the Ecozoic Era. Brian continues, I'm fairly certain that his invention of the word came in reflecting on Teilhard's word for the next era was psychozoic, which honestly might be more accurate for how we're behaving right now. We're still not in Ecozoic. We'd like to get there, but I don't think we're there yet. I love the way the ideas of Teilhard's blossom forth in Thomas with new dimensions, especially regarding ecology. The glossary of the universe story offers a mature definition for Ecozoic. Ready? The emerging period of life following the Cenozoic and characterized at a basic level by its mutually enhancing human-earth relations. The word derives from the scientific tradition that divides the Phanerozoic eon into the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras. Read that 3 times fast. 4, the 3 eras of life, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, Cenozoic. The words we use to describe the stage of Earth's history, like all words, were coined by someone. Because Thomas invented Ecozoic to stand with other geologic terms, my curiosity led me to inquire about the coining of Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic. What is revealed as one ponders the story of Earth and life is that Earth is about something unique at different stages of its development, is involved in different kinds of great work at different times, and has different projects in different chapters of its life. While trying to understand Earth's story, geologists of the 18th and 19th centuries noticed that the lower strata of rocks contained fossils of simpler life forms, while higher strata contained fossils of more complex life forms. If one arranged these fossils based on the assumption that life became more complex over time, one could create a narrative of the complexification of life on Earth, with 3 distinct stages revealing themselves: the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic eras. Adam Sedgwick, a founder of modern geology, teacher of Charles Darwin, and professor at Cambridge University, coined the term Paleozoic era. In 1840, inspired by Sedgwick, John Phillips, a savant and professor of geology at King's College London and Oxford University, coined the term Mesozoic era and Cenozoic era. In the naming of the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras, Sedgwick and Phillips extended our imaginations, capturing stages of the story of history and of life. A quick primer of the nomenclature of geochronology. Developed over the last 3 centuries, Earth's geological story is classified into ever more specific units of geological time. The units, like the Russian nesting dolls, are called, oh gosh. This is interesting because actually I had never really, not being a geologist, I hadn't really put all these details together in my mind. So hopefully it's as interesting to you as it is for me. Hold on. Supereon, a unit of time spanning billions of years, for example, the Precambrian. Eon, a unit of time spanning hundreds of millions of years, for example, the Phanerozoic. So when we talk about it's been eons since I've seen you, no, it actually hasn't been. But era, a unit of time spanning dozens of millions of years, for example, the Cenozoic. So 64,000, which is the Cenozoic, is an era, not an eon. Period, a unit of time spanning millions of years, for example, the Jurassic, named in 1795, now with standardization of nomenclature indicated by the suffix gene. Oh, like Anthropomorphine. Anthropocene, my God, Anthropocene. So that's a period. See, why couldn't we have come up with a different word? Period is already used for other things. We don't. Epoch, a unit of time spanning many thousands of years. For example, the Pleistocene. But I thought you said the ending, oh no, it ends with gene. Okay, sorry, scene, okay. Anthropocene. So it is an epoch, many thousands of years. Now with standardization of nomenclature indicated by the suffix "scene." So gene is period, and scene is epoch, and then an age, a smaller unit of time spanning thousands of years. For example, the boreal year, the boreal age. Okay, so now we have supereon, eon, era, period, epoch, age. Time units of the same title need not span the same number of years. For example, the Paleozoic era was about 291 million years in duration, while the Mesozoic spanned about 180 million years. So the Paleozoic is about 291 million years, so it's an eon. So plants have been living for eons. I can actually officially say that plants have been living for eons. And the Cenozoic talks about, because there are colloquial uses of geologic timescale terms, eon, era, period, epoch, age, many a conversation about the Ecozoic era. Why era? Dozens of millions of years. Is it really an era though? It will become an era, but it's not an era today. Right now, it's more like an age. Actually, right now, I don't think it exists. I think we're putting the cart before the horse here. Many conversations on Ecozoic era have gotten unfocused and off point. I encourage you to stay focused on Thomas's definition of Ecozoic and to stay focused on the scientific definition of an era. Although it's still not an era. This is crucial for the full understanding of the term. All right, for a second, suspension of disbelief. We have Ecozoic is an era, even though it's not yet, or no, does it really exist? Thinking in and relating to deep geologic time. By offering us Ecozoic, Thomas asks us to look into the deep time of the planet and the biosphere, just as his predecessors, Sedgwick and Phillips, did when they named the Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic eras. By suggesting the term Ecozoic era to follow the Cenozoic era, which is not yet an era, it's still a Cenozoic epoch. No, period, 65,000 millions of years. Dozens of millions. It is an era. Sorry, I'm so getting confused. By suggesting the term Ecozoic to follow the Cenozoic era, we are being asked to think, to be aware, to pay attention in the scale of eras. In other words, in dozens of millions of years, not decade, not millennia, not even a few million years, but in dozens of millions of years. We're being asked to think in deep time. So deep time, though, in the future is what we're being asked to think about. Why? Because human actions today reach through ages, epochs, and periods into eras. Thomas didn't suggest the name Ecozoic age or Ecozoic period, but the Ecozoic era. This is, of course, because he wanted us to expand our deep time consciousness and realize the long-term effects of our current dysfunctional, maladaptive cosmology, which easily extends millions of years into the future. Okay, this is the part I don't get. Maybe it's going to say this, but is Ecozoic because we want to stop the crap we're doing now and think in terms of a creation of an Ecozoic era in the future? Or does he actually think we're in an Ecozoic era already? I feel like there's still confusion around this. We deform geology, extinguish species, desolate the biosphere, poison the atmosphere, desiccate the hydrosphere, all of which change the starting point for future generations of life and for all Earth systems. When those of us with geological consciousness describe the reach of humans into anything less than periods or eras on the time scale of millions of years, we harm Earth and thus ourselves. For example, when Paul Crutzen, Nobel laureate and atmospheric chemist at the Max Planck Institute for Chemistry in Germany, coined the term Anthropocene, finally talking about it, in 2000, he wasn't thinking in deep enough time. Crutzen regards the influence of human behavior on the Earth in recent centuries to be significant enough to constitute a new geological phase. On that, he and I can agree. The whole Earth community will be dealing with anthropogenic effects for a very long time. Yet he chose a word, Anthropocene, whose etymological suffix, "cene," means an epochs, naming a scale of thousands of years. The changes we have made reach far beyond thousands of years. I invite Crutzen, his colleagues, and the scientific community to consider nesting the new epoch, the Anthropocene epoch, within the Ecozoic era. Yes, but we are in the Anthropocene and we are not in the Ecozoic. I still don't understand this part because I still don't understand how she's arguing that the Ecozoic is today, which would mean nesting the Anthropocene inside of the Ecozoic, if we are not currently thriving in mutual harmony. I believe it would orient us all towards the new cosmology and a vibrant new community. Now, that part I understand, right? So what you're saying is we're not there, but I believe we need to get there. And so the way we're going to get there is by nesting the Anthropocene. But if we do this, don't we just dirty, that's not the right word, but I'm going to use it for now, dirty the Ecozoic term by polluting is a better word, pollute the Ecozoic term with anthropomorphic behaviors? Am I the only one that's seeing it like that? Am I just being too much? By using the term Ecozoic era, we are also being invited to have personal relationship with new geologic era that is beginning to rise in our lifetimes. It seems we may be able to help shape it. Okay, so I get the concept. It's like we kind of almost want to ignore where we are today and we want to give it a label of something that we want it to become tomorrow in order for us to stop being what we are today and just focus on becoming what we want to be tomorrow. I get it. Rather than thinking about the term in the future, if I put it in the today, I bring that energy into the today. I can understand this. I don't think it's written very clearly, but I get the perspective. Where do humans fit in? A quest to name the human era of Earth. Imagine you're a 19th century geologist. It is 1850. The idea of deep time and evolution seems pretty likely to be true. You've arranged your large collection of fossilized animals and planets from less complex to more complex anatomies, creating a narrative of transmutation over time. You have correlated this fossil narrative with the stratigraphy of rock formations. Your theories about geology and the story of the Earth are only strengthened. You become more confident as more evidence arrives from colleagues around the world, as a growing number of geologic periodicals increase, and as meetings of geologists become more frequent, as travel becomes easier and more reliable. The global geological conversation is happily intensifying. It seems that that the arc of understanding of Earth's development may be in place. The puzzle that is geology seemed nearly complete, but then you noticed you forgot one puzzle piece in your hand. The human piece. It's a pretty big piece. Where do humans fit into your geological narrative? Are they part of Earth? Yes, although we've forgotten it. The answer is yes. The answer is yes. The Christian theology that surrounds you in the culture suggests that humans are not of this world. Well, that we're aliens is a whole other story. But I don't think the Christian theology wants to really think about the story of aliens. It would be more accurate, though. The humans are not of this world, but are unnatural additions to Earth. So we would think about this as the lobotom, we as in Dominarian philosophy and many other spiritual philosophies, is kind of the lobotomization of humans, that we've sort of forgotten that we are of this earth, but we really are. We really are. I mean, we have some alien stuff in us, but I think all kind of species have been cross-pollinating across planets forever. I mean, isn't this the reason why they found moss on Mars, right? Moss have colonized parts of Mars. Sinners, fallen foreigners, hailing from another realm. Yet you privately wonder, what if humans are a natural part of creation? Where would they fit into the organic geology you know so well? Many 19th century geologists, while studying and publishing about the grand microphase development, so I was just having a realization that when we find human remains embedded in the earth, we think of them as like a tomb or entombed or something like that. And when we find animals and plants, we think of them as fossils, but aren't they all fossils? Okay, I'm not going to go that way. I'm not going to go that path. Sorry, my mind started to go there. She's still coming at this very human-centric and picking a term that people will embrace. I agree with you, Michelle. I totally agree. Oh, they're also called mummies. You're right. Humans are sometimes called, but that's if they've been entombed in that way. Well, but yes, you're right. You're right. But you're right. She is coming up with this very, very human-centric, which to me seems extremely strange if your argument is to have an Ecozoic era. Like if your argument is to have Ecozoic, then don't you want to create an Ecozoic perspective? I don't know. Maybe I'm misunderstanding this whole thing. Let's keep going. Many 19th century geologists, while studying and publishing about the grand microphase development of Earth, also studied and wrote short field guides to areas they knew well, often the lands around their childhood homes. The field guides described organic geologic forms like mountains, hills, cliffs, and rivers, but they would include anthropogenic incursions into organic geology by mines, quarries, canals, tunnels, and roads. Obvious and powerful examples of human impact on geology. As witness to the rapid industrialization of the 19th century, geologists noticed that humankind commanded as much power to affect geology as ocean, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, forest fires, landslides, volcanoes, and asteroids. Yeah, but so do certain animals, like beavers make a huge impact on their land. It's just that we've many species that exist in multiple continents and in multiple locations that have made huge, many roads that we know of today were originally animal routes that then became human routes because the humans followed the easiest path, right? The path of least resistance, which included the routes that the animals were traveling. And wouldn't you then say that? So here it is. Here's the part that is, or bees, exactly. Bees, agreed, Claudia. Like it's almost as if putting humans commanded the same power to affect his geology as our oceans, hurricanes, floods, earthquakes, tsunamis, forest fires, landslides, volcanoes, and asteroids. But I think she's forgetting all of the other kinds of, like, first of all, from a certain perspective, an indigenous perspective, all of these are also persons, right? Ocean persons and hurricane persons and flood person, not floods because flood is water, but like the others are, so oceans or water persons and fire. This is really bizarre because I think we've been so immersed. So all of us here are really immersed in the whole looking at the world and the earth as made up of many different kinds of beings and individuals that make up a whole, and all of these different pieces. And that's the more we're going to, which is what you would assume when you hear something like the Ecozoic. And yet she is distinguishing between what she is considering to be inert versus like living, as in humans, but she's like not mentioning the plants or because seriously, if you're going to talk about, as witnessed, humankind has much power to affect geology as what plants and animals. Yeah, they're another species that is, of course, going to affect as many different species of plants have affected as many different species of animals are. This is very, human. I'm going with you, Michelle. This is very human-centric. For 150 years, the question has nagged the geologic community. What is the relationship of humans to geology and to Earth? Perhaps it occurred in other disciplines, but geologists were particularly sensitive to the relationship between time, Earth, life, and human beings. I'm sorry, what is life defined of in this term, especially with a lowercase l? I would like a little asterisk there, or a little superscript, like a number, a footnote that tells me what you define life as, because you put time, Earth as an entirely, and human beings at the same level, animals, plants, bacteria, viruses, fungi, like this is very weird. The task of being a geologist, especially for geology, I mean, come on, there's an entire world of underground beings that The task of being a geologist required that they develop a unique sensitivity to the story of Earth, requiring the inclusion of how humankind was responsible for changing that story. I'm going to keep going. I'm just going to keep going. Remember, we said suspension of disbelief a little while ago. Suspension of disbelief. They saw things in a way others did not. They developed a new way of looking at and understanding Earth. They evolved a new organ of perception. Okay, I'm going to just slightly change vocabulary. I'm not completely disagreeing with the statement. Okay, they developed a new way of looking at or understanding Earth. Agreed. Okay, they evolved a new organ of perception. Disagree. They reawakened, because remember, as we talk more and more about your rockness, your plantness, your animalness, your fungi-ness, you start to recognize that we as beings of nature, which is what she's missing here. The Earth is made up of all these different beings and components and that make up a whole that is the Earth. And we as humans are the same, and we have all these different aspects on us. So I would say that for sure there was the evolution of a new organ of perception, but not because it was created, but because it was rediscovered. Because again, we come of the Earth, with a little bit of alien mixed in probably. And so therefore it makes sense that we are of the Earth in this way. The family tree of the Ecozoic era. I'd like to introduce you to the family tree of the term Ecozoic. There were terms that existed before the 19th century, like Buffon's realm of man. Ugh. But I regard them as Dante Alighieri's regarded the virtuous pagans in the first circle of hell in his Inferno, well-meaning but unable to join the journey because they were unbaptized by geological knowledge. Is it me, or is that extremely condescending in the way that it's written? Okay. So for this brief study, I begin in the 19th century because everybody else beforehand, on them. As with any genealogy, more information is known about some ancestors than others. New members may be added and new details may come to light. Between 1859 and 2000, we know of 6 terms that were proposed by geologists and cultural historians for the time when humans participate in shaping Earth and thus the Earth community. Okay, wait, hold on. Where are we? I'm going to go up a second because I want to go back to the beginning. When humans live in mutually enhancing relationship with Earth and the Earth community, this is what is Ecozoic. So it sounds like the confusion that's happening between us is we are seeing the humans affect the Earth and the Earth community, which is what the Anthropocene means, but that's mutually enhancing. Like, yes, there have been some, but there's been a lot more that is not mutually enhancing. So I think this is where we're disagreeing. So let's see how she goes in this part. Okay. Besides a brief discussion on each term below, I've included a few historical background events indicated with an arrow and an indent to briefly sketch the historical milieu out of which the terms came. Let us begin. 1838, Adam Sedgwick coins Paleozoic. 1840, John Phillips coins Mesozoic and Cenozoic eras. We're currently in the Cenozoic era. 1857, the Alpine Club of London is founded, the oldest gentlemen's mountaineering club. Why is this an important fact? I have no idea. In 1863, the Italian Alpine Club, founded inspired by the London Club. They're called the Alpini. It is a very important club, by the way. We have a huge amount of them right around the area where I live. They are amazing and hysterical. They have really cool hats, an entire museum and bard that is dedicated to them, which I love. And they do a lot of events still. Gotta love these folks. Anyway, not sure why it's important, but Stoppani, the inventor of the Anthropozoic era, was president of the Milano chapter in 1874. A generation later, it helped inspire John Muir to start the Sierra Club in Martinez, California in 1892. 1859, Charles Darwin on the Origin of Species published. Important for us to know as facts. I have no idea why yet. Okay, let's just keep going. The Age of Mind is coined by geology professor James Dwight Dana of Yale University. In 1859, he wrote an article. This is all very European. Yes, Michelle, it is. It's very unusual. The Age of Mind is coined by geology professor James Dwight Dana of Yale University. Here we go. We're finally getting to some American-y stuff. In 1859, he wrote an article called Anticipation of Man in Nature in the journal The New Englander, in which he states, the present age, the age of mind. Okay, the age of mind, I like. The age of mind, I do not like. I mean, of man, sorry. I like the age of mind because, as we talk about all the time, we are getting more and more into the understanding of mind as a universal thing that, like, plants have mind, animals have mind. Probably, I would bet we're eventually going to get to the idea that fungi have minds. I just don't think anybody's there yet in having that terminology. I do think a lot of people are there talking about fungi consciousness in some ways, but ooh, that's another topic. I don't want to get there yet. I'm not there yet. Plants. So the age of mind is that towards which all the preceding ages were preparatory, a fact strongly urged by Dr. Horace Bushnell. This reminds me of Teilhard's new sphere moving towards Omega. I don't know what that even means. Many of Dana's ideas blossomed for generations, including in Teilhard's, I think there was including in Teilhard's, one, the idea of Earth as a single evolving unit. Do we believe that? Is Earth a single evolving unit? We're going to put it as an aside. We need to discuss that. 2, the term radial. 3, the idea of cephalization, or the headward movement of evolution. 4, the law of progress of the whole through, though not necessarily of all the parts. The law of progress of the whole, though not necessarily of all the parts. That makes sense, right? Because we always say that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. As well as 5, geologist Agassiz idea of the law of differentiation, which Dana promoted. I believe many important seeds of Teilhard's philosophy, and therefore Thomas and Brian's philosophy, singular, and therefore the philosophy of the Ecozoic era will be found in the 18th and the 19th century theology. In theology, I think we're starting to see our problem, right? Is that we're looking for things inside of theology. 1862, the era of mind, age of man. So at this point, remember the article that I did a few months back that was talking about the fact that in the 1800s, And there was already a discussion happening about plant mind. It was kind of ignored. I have to pull back and look through all of the old papers to see where that article is, because it was an awesome paper. Like, it was an awesome article that we reviewed here in our commentary. But I think I'm going to go with that definition, and I'm going to ignore the fact that they keep saying the age of man, and I'm just going to go with the era of mind. What do you think? We're just going to go with the era of mind. Data published a groundbreaking textbook, The Manual of Geology, in 1862, a standard bearer for decades. It had revisions in many years. I have an undated revision edition. I don't care. Congratulations, which has a chart on page 132 calling the top stratigraphic layer of Earth the age of man. Ugh, it came back. I couldn't ignore it. He anticipates Stoppani's 1873 claim of humans as sui generis, humankind standing alone as unique fruit of creation. Hold on a second, folks. I have to take a breath. Okay, you know I live in Italy, but Italians. Sui generis, humankind. First of all, I'm happy that she is using the terminology humankind and not just man, although the Italians probably meant man. Humankind standing alone as unique fruit of creation. Isn't every species a unique fruit of creation? Every unique species. And I still believe we would actually have more versions of, I've had this conversation before, so I'm going to just throw it out there, but we're not going to get into it now. I still believe we would have more versions of Homo if we didn't just kill off everything we think and look at every new type of person as having a birth defect. If we stopped looking at everything as a birth defect, we would have more versions of humanity. But because we continue to look at everything as a birth defect and we try to kill it off, get rid of it, or correct it, we don't have the opportunity for us to grow in new tools. Like somebody who's born with remember the ever popular when a child is born, the first thing they say is, oh, they have 5 fingers and 5 toes. But when one is born with 6, we look at that as a deformity. Is it a deformity? Is it a deformity? Isn't it a deformity? Or could those 6 toes in 2 or 3 generations become literally fully functional toes and fingers, right? Why are we looking at everything as a deformity? So, or a tail, exactly. Somebody's born with a tail. Like there are so many different things that we're just, okay, I'm not going to go there. Sorry. 1864, the book Man and Nature, because women don't count yet. Sorry, like we don't count. Physical Geography as Modified by Human Action is published by George Perkins Marsh. Marsh's book began a centuries-long conversation about the role of humankind in the physical. She also, not only is she very human-centric, but she's very confused in this is my opinion only. I need props to state opinion. I need a little prop. Opinion only. I think she keeps using the word humankind, human, when things are called the Book of Man and Nature, because I do not think she wants to admit that in this period of time, women, which I believe from the name we thought this was a woman who wrote this, women didn't count for shit. So I feel like she's really writing these things in a way of women, she's trying to call it human, when I don't think any of these people thought about women as humans in this period of time. This is my personal opinion. But yet she's totally okay talking about Ecozoic mutually thriving and in Earth, and it's just thinking about human centrality and that plants and animals don't exist. I find this hysterical. Okay, Marsh includes Stoppani's new term Anthropozoic era in 1874 edition. 1866, Ernest Haeckel coins ecology. I didn't realize it was coined in 1866. 1873, Anthropozoic era. In volume 2 of Corso di Geologia di Italian, Corso di Geologia, which just means Italian course. Geology course. The Italian abbot Antonio Stoppani introduces the term Anthropozoic era. He is Milan's Alpine Club president, 1874, and was the maternal uncle, friend, and influencer. Ooh, there were influencers in the 1800s. Did you know that? Influencer of the great educator Maria Montessori, from Montessori schools. George Perkins Marsh says Stoppani saw the action of man, see here, man, as the new physical element altogether, sui generis, right? Remember, it's like man is the unique creation. The creation of man, says he, was the introduction of a new element into nature, of a force wholly unknown to earlier periods. Really? Only wholly unknown in its destructive abilities. Because again, are you trying to tell me that great whales and everything that the whales do that affects our environment from their poo, from their oxygenation, from the way that they mix the waters by diving, that's not. Yeah, Michelle, you're right. Completely human-centric. It is a new telluric force, which in power and universality may be compared to the greater forces of the earth. I believe Marsh's book, which quotes Stoppani as the first introduction of the term to English readers, although the concept had been present since Dana's 1859 article. In 1875, Edward Seuss coins biosphere, hydrosphere, lithosphere. Atmosphere was coined in 1638. Wow, I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. 1877, Psychozoic era. Psychozoic, I love that term. I want to use that term. Joseph LeConte, professor of geology at UC Berkeley in 1800s, that's pretty cool, coined the term Psychozoic era. It first appears in his 1877 textbook, Elements of Geology, which had 13 revisions. He defines the Psychozoic era, or era of mind. See, I still like the idea of era of mind, by saying that Neolithic commences and the Psychozoic era, or reign of man. I don't like that part, but it is true. It's like when we're destroying everything because men are psycho. Not men, humans are psychos. Sorry, I'm speak clear. As a geologist and well-read gentleman, oh, how elegant. LeConte would have known of Dana's terms, era of mind, age of man, as well as Stoppani's term, Anthropozoic era. I believe LeConte's term, Psychozoic era, is his attempts at improving the previous terms. Impressively, the word is adopted and disseminated throughout American society for about 2 generations, with the following examples. 1877, OED, Psychozoic, from psycho, entry, or belonging to the geologic period of living creatures having souls or minds, i.e. the human period. Okay, I thought this was going to be the prequel to the paper I actually wanted to do, and it's turned out to be the entire paper we want to do, but living creatures having souls or minds, I like that it is open to living creatures, but why is the i.e. the human period? This is so fucking confusing. Yeah, right. When we're talking about the, beings that impact the earth, right? The otters eating the urchins that eat the kelp that protect the coastlines from erosion. Thank you, Michelle. Yes, but so why is living creatures having souls or minds equal to the human period? Because other creatures don't have minds in 1877. Oh my goodness. We are going to have to dissect a bunch of this other stuff at some point, just so you know. 1878, Nathaniel Bartler Sylvester, History of Saratoga County, New York, reproduces a table of geologic time that includes Psychozoic era, age of man, mind. He attributes it to Dana Manual of Geology. I suspect, okay, it doesn't matter. LeConte, so 1892, LeConte is a founding member of the Sierra Club, fully aware of human actions that change Earth. I need to drink. I should have put something like, I should have spiked this. In 1879, Psychozoic era, Peabody Academy of Science in Salem, Massachusetts. When was the time of the witch trials? Bulletin of the SS Institute, a Psychozoic era listed after the Paleozoic and Xenozoic. So we're already talking about moving into the Psychozoic era. 1903 Psychozoic era in Ezra Morgan's Woods, beginnings of faith and science, because of course faith and science should go together. The Psychozoic era is the era of man. That man with the capital M that sometimes represents also women, but man, lower that. And the Psychozoic era is the era of soul life. Now, this is interesting and includes the Stone Age, the Bronze Age, and the Iron Age. Man's appearance on Earth is comparatively recent as compared with the geologic periods. There's so much to dissect. I am not a geologist, so I'm not going to dissect it too much, but Psychozoic in Webster's Revised Unabridged Dictionary, Psychozoic, designating or applied to the era of man as the Psychozoic era. Psychozoic era in Teilhard, as a geologist, would have been well aware of Leconte's textbook that coined the term. He uses it in The Human Phenomenon, finished in 1938. Published in 1955. So we're getting all the way to the 1950s, folks. In 1945, Psychozoic era, Vladimir Vernadsky's, so now the Russians finally get involved, coined the term noosphere with Leroy and Teilhard, uses it in the latest published before his death. Then from 1945 to the present, why do you suppose the term and idea fall from use after first decades of the 20th century? Good question. 1892, why are we going back to 1892? The Sierra Club, founded by John Muir in his home in Martinez, California. Okay, hold on. 1919, A.P. Pavlov, the Russian geologist, coined Anthropogene period. So this is not the Anthropocene era, but the Anthropogene period. And if you remember, period is what? Dozens of years or something like that. Dozens of millions of years, excuse me. He suggested renaming the Quaternary to the Anthropogene in 1919, while the Western European scientific tradition to this day struggles to fit humans into the organic unfolding of Earth. The Eastern European Russian scientific community came to terms with it early on. What we Western science, because we don't want to admit that we suck as humans. That's probably the difference. What we Western scientific nomenclature users call the Quaternary period, the Eastern scientific nomenclature users call the Anthropogene period. It is a period that saw the emergence of proto-humans and humans beginning around 2.5 million years ago. Through his work at the Moscow Geological Museum, Pavlov was a decades-long colleague of geologist Vladimir Vernadsky, who coined noosphere in 1924. Do we really use noosphere? If you use noosphere, let me know. With somebody else. Pavlov also coined the term anthropogenic to designate an effect or object resulting from human activity. They're anthropogenic. It is impressive that the Russians had the intellectual honesty and clarity almost a century ago to place humans in geological time. Vernadsky's noosphere, for which we are so grateful, comes out of this tradition, which accepts that humans affect Earth, a first step towards geological consciousness. Here's my thing. Here's my 2-second rant. I'm sorry, I was laughing. Michelle's comments are the best, right? Period, because we're bloody, messy, causing cramps and bloating. I love this. Sorry. Here's my thing. I don't actually have any problem with the fact that she focuses on a lot of these like human affecting Earth terms. I don't have a problem with this. I'm having a problem with two things. One is that this is supposed to be connected to Ecozoic. And so the fact that Ecozoic is supposed to be mutually thriving, and that's not what we're experiencing. So I still don't understand where Ecozoic gets put in, if it's future facing or not. And second is the fact that there is no at least a one-line acknowledgement that says, up until the human I don't know what word I'll use, invasion, we had, though, massive amounts of earth, plants, earth, animal, earth, fungi, earth, blah, 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 whatever terminologies you want to use, whatever species you want to talk about. So the earth has been always highly affected by who lives in, with, and on earth. And so humans are the next continuation, but where all of the other beings up until this have created mutually thriving. This is the part that's ridiculous. This is the part to me that is ridiculous. Up until the anthropogenic, we had mutually thriving relationships between what was living in, on, and with the earth and this overall being, which is the earth. Because in reality, the earth is made up of the sum of all the parts of everybody that's living on, with, or in. Then humans come around and we do all this destructive. We're the first overarchingly destructive in the sense of so many different places. So that's where our place is. And I feel like this is crazy that we're not talking about it in that way, that she's just talking about it as if it's like the world was just developing with no mind, with no whatever. And then humans came around and hallelujah. Okay. So 1924, an important book as a geological agent by Sherlock. Man is characterized not just as a unique force of nature, but acting as a geological force. Because again, all the others weren't. 1924, Verdansky and Leroy coined noosphere. Okay, we already know this. Then we have ecosystem comes in. Maria Montessori, the niece of Stoppani, coins cosmic education as foundational idea for we're not even going to get into that. I don't even know what that means, and I'm curious, but I'm not going to go there. Gaia theory, 1972, by William Goldwyn for inventor James Lovelock. Gaia theory, we're going to have to do a whole thing on Lovelock and Gaia theory. Oh my God, I love Gaia theory and Lovelock. There is just so much there. Not going in there. 89, the Ecozoic era gets termed, okay? Then the Anthropocene epoch in 2000. Paul J. Crutzen coined the term on the spur of the moment as a scientific conference in the 2000s, the Anthropocene, I'm assuming. As with all of his predecessors, his intent in coining the phrase was to bring attention to the impact humankind has made to Earth. While the word is gaining attention, I believe its meaning too shallow and too short-sighted to safely navigate us into the deep future, as I indicated above. I find it curious that many current English language articles reviewing and discussing the term Anthropocene contain a certain shock at the idea that a new geologic stage has been inaugurated, and especially by humankind. What Thomas, Brian, and Ecozoic movement are embracing has far greater reach than what Crutzen has proposed. When we look at the family tree as a totality, we begin to see a pattern of growth. You know what the difference is? No, this is not what she's talking. That is not accurate. That is not accurate. What we have to remember is that up until now, everybody had been talking about human and impact as in like it was neutral or it was even positive. Where Anthropocene is specifically delineating or making comment that humanity has had an impact, that for the first time in the history of the planet, it's specifically creating a worse condition, which is not actually true either, because we have had massive mass extinctions where probably the beings that were living in there were creating some combination of effect that led us toward extinction. So it could very well be that even this Anthropocene is not necessarily as negative as we think it is, but rather another cycle of extinction that happens around the planet. And that's a conversation we actually need to start having at some point, because I'm kind of almost getting sick also of the idea of us looking at, look, we as humanity are flippant, we are impolite, we make a lot of decisions without really thinking about the consequences. I am all for all of those statements. But at the same time, it's very possible that other species did so beforehand too, and that led to some of these other extinction events. We don't know. So we need to have a broader reaching conversation, which we're not going to have now. Okay. Is it possible for humans to prescribe geology? As we've discussed, the Ecozoic was invented to stand in the scientific tradition with the fully accepted geologic terms of Cenozoic, Mesozoic, and Paleozoic eras. But Ecozoic is a term that suggests a vision of how the human Earth community could be, not necessarily how it has been in the past. Okay, so we are talking about forward thinking. This is an intellectually challenging point. Geology is descriptive activity, a descriptive science that narrates chapters of Earth's story from the past. Geology does not describe how Earth should be in the future, hence the confusion. Yet, Ecozoic is a prescriptive or normative term describing a geologic era that is yet to be or has barely begun, that will mature and fruit in the future. Are we directing or prescribing geology when we use the term Ecozoic era? Good question. We know how humans have been an anthropogenic geological force for at least 6 millennia. With microphasing planning and microphase consciousness, we have permanently altered our organic geology. We have done this with our quarries, henges, burrows, mounds, polders, pit mines, strip mines, mountaintop mines, slag heaps, oil wells, water wells, dikes, drainage systems, embankments, diversions, canals, dams, tunnels, roads, excavation, sedimentation, dredging, breakwaters, landfills, junkyards, bombs, nuclear waste, etc. I like how she ends on nuclear waste. That was beautiful touch, beautiful touch. With the change of scale that has occurred with our technology and our population, we know we live in a time profoundly dysfunctional and maladaptive geology. Humans are a destructive geological force. Would it be possible for humans to consciously prescribe a future life-enhancing, regenerative time? The fact that we have worked together to make Earth worse off proves we are capable of great things. That's really spinning it. That's totally spinning it. I love that. Okay. Thank goodness we are beginning to understand that we can make Earth better off. We have prescribed the future. Thomas reminds us that we live between stories after the old cosmology has clearly proved itself to be dysfunctional, but before the new cosmology has matured to become fully functional. It is like the time after life became prescriptive, but before it became reflective in the human animal. The universe is groping towards a new way which can be sensed, but which cannot yet formed. Can you feel it? Yes, we talk about it all the time at NCC. Come have conversations on this. Thomas also reminds us that we are genetically endowed for cultural or transgenetic solutions as to how to live. In comparison to other animals, finally she compares to other animals. In comparison to other animals, we are born very immature or half-cooked. The genetic adaptation of an immature birth allows the culture we are born into to complete us with its unique sensitivities of language, customs, habits, nutrition. Are we really the only species like that? Or, oh no, she's not saying that. She's just saying we are. Okay. Sorry. Each gave humanity the cultural assignment to answer the question, how shall we live? We answered that question with a question, how shall we make Earth so that we may live as we choose? With the complete harmonization of Earth, having implicated ourselves deeply into Earth systems, we find that we are not compelled to ask, what type of macrophase anthropogenic geology shall we engage in? Interesting question. As I understand it, currently all human activity that changes the geologic face of Earth is called anthropogenic, but not all anthropogenic geology activity and motivation is equal. Thomas offered a prescriptive possibility, a vision of humans living in mutually enhancing relationships with Earth. Not what we're doing right now. The Ecozoic era. This vision must be compared and contrasted with the current life-destroying geocidal geology directed by corporations, which I hereby call corporogenic geology. Corporogenic geology is carried out by the person known as a. Okay, you had me. I was following you, and then you had to call it a person, which I know is legally correct, but we have not talked about personhood in anything here. Please do not insert a personhood discussion if you're not willing to get into it. We sprouts have been doing the person discussion, and it is deep, it is wide, it is emotional, it is complex, it has a lot of different moving parts to it, Please do not open that conversation. That answers not to justice or justice, because the rights of nature conversation is another one that is the same way. Not to domestic tranquility, not to general welfare, not to posterity, not to the community of life, not to deep time, but to short-term maladaptive microphase profit. As we grope our way into the future, it is critically important that we draw a distinction between, one, the consciously anthropogenic actions of families and neighbors deciding how to live sustainably for 7 generations on a mountaintop, and two, the anthropogenic actions of humans working for a corporation that blows up the tops of the same mountains in the name of corporate profit. Oh, there's a 3 and a 4 and a 7 and a 20 and a 35. This is not just those two distinctions. Anthropogenic geologic activity can be classified thus: A, microphase impact of past historical times; B, macrophase impact with the contemporary scale of activities, which can be divided into A, unorganized, unconscious microphase geologic activity, which now must be considered macrophase because of the scale of human impact on Earth. I get that. Corporogenic geologic activity, contemporary large-scale activity that must be halted to preserve and enhance the Earth community. Okay. Ecozoic geologic activity, nascent, and the future great work of the human family, which I'm assuming she's saying in parentheses, the move from competition and primary competition as the human model of our natural instinct to the primarily mutualistic or mutually enhancing model of human activity. I'm assuming that this is what she's trying to go to. In conclusion, the largest sense, ecozoic, is a term that encompasses this really needed a transdiscipline read through and edit, because I think that if you would have taken some terms from biomimicry and from plant neurobiology and some other, and animals, and I just think this could be a much better, I think it needs a complete editing phase. In the largest sense, ecozoic is a term that encompasses the ideas of space, time, human, earth relations. It asks, how shall we live? How shall we live so that others may live? It is a perennial idea deeply embedded in what it means to be human, expressed in the cultures, customs, religions, myths, and facts of the development story of the human family. It has roots that reach deep into the mysterious development of our human body and our human psyche. The search for a name for our human Earth era, honey, you cannot call it mutually thriving if you just call it a human Earth era. You are leaving out, you're missing the forest for the trees. You're looking at the tree of the relationship between humans and Earth, and you are not seeing that you are forgetting all of the others. And if we're going to move forward, ecozoic, if you're just going to define it as human Earth, it is not the right term. And that's the reason why it's not getting any traction. Just saying. Thomas is the inheritor of a rich intellectual tradition and part of the grand matrix of philosophical and practical inquiry that spans back at least to the middle of the 19th century. Many others before him were trying to name and describe the human-Earth relationship within deep time. It is no accident that the birth of geology occurred simultaneously and within the same intellectual community as the awareness that humans impact Earth. It is as if the Earth wanted humans to know and understand our geologic role. This is an early echo of Thomas's human-Earth relations, a key to the Ecozoic era. I share with you this research because I want you to know that, as a movement, we are not the first generation to grapple with the fact that humans change and impact Earth. Others with Earth consciousness care deeply and were concerned with human-Earth relations at least 150 years back in time. I want us to know that we have a history that includes intellectual and spiritual ancestors who thought about the role of civilization to a hominized Earth. I want us to feel the company and strength of our ecozoic ancestors as we proceed with our great work. And the great work is so much more, honey, like wrong word, wrong term. The great work is so much more. And while those who came before may not have offered deeply sophisticated models of how to create a robust human civilization while living within a healthy Earth community, that would be our great work, they did gift us by discovering Earth's great geological story within which we think and act today. They gave us the Earth articulations of healthy or human-Earth relations, which Thomas and Brian have built upon. I hope my findings provide you with the context and historical background for our great work as we grope towards building the Ecozoic era, for we stand on the shoulders of giants. Okay, I'm going to give you a very quick summary because we're way over time, but I think it's totally worth it. Overall, and I'm in the darkness. I don't know why I'm in such darkness, but I don't want to get up right now to turn the light on. I can't will it on. Let me say this. It's a good start. This was also written in 2010, so we're talking about almost 15 years ago. We got to recognize that there's probably been an update to this. The direction is generally good, but again, I think the overall argument I could say is that she missed the forest for the trees. And so she concentrated on the trees, and great that you concentrated on the trees. It's up to us to concentrate on the forest. So I'm going to go look. The paper that I want to do that, I guess what I'll do next week, is the one about higher education in the Ecozoic, was actually written in 2019. So I think we're going to get a much better understanding from this paper as to what the Ecozoic era is starting to look like now and the ologies around Ecozoic. And I think this is going to be an exciting direction for us to go. So we're moving back. Michelle gives us a thumbs down. I agree that it's a start. It's the first geologic era that's starting to look at the future. So we do have to give models for the future. I just think that, again, forest for the trees. So let's expand out from our human, because if we keep thinking about it from a human term only, then we're just going to have the same anthropogenic responses, because we're going to put ourselves on the top of everything. So if we're going to do mutual thriving, we need to think about this. We need to think about the forest. So let's see what the educational model that comes up in next week's paper. And yeah, agreed. And so we'll think about it and we'll look at it. All right. So that's where we're going to be. Thank you so much if you're, for being here. Remember that we do this live commentary every Friday in the Naturally Conscious community, except for once every 2 months when we have our book club discussion around the same time. So that doesn't work. But every time we do it every Friday in the Naturally Conscious community, and then I publish it out across other channels. So please come if you want to experience it live, have your comments, and have this interactive discussion with me. We are working through many different papers and essays, as you can see, a broad reach. You can also find the entire archive of all of the papers that we've reviewed and all the different essays and articles that we've reviewed in the Naturally Conscious community under Sprout Discussions, Programs, Replays. And you also can find a selection of them on YouTube and on my website. So there's lots of material for you to explore. If you come across a paper, an article, a discussion piece, anything that you want us to review here together, please send it to me. I am happy to review that. I'll put it into the big long queue that we currently have. And that's it. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for being here. Please remember to resist the urge to hold back your emerging green brilliance. And we will see each other again next week. Bye.